today. If you're in favor of property tax caps, let's hear it. My name is Paul Wyman, and I am here today representing 17,000 realtors across the state of Indiana. All right. Realtors are just one of the many groups that make up the Hoosier Property Tax Reform Alliance. The Hoosier Property Tax Reform Alliance is comprised of concerned citizens seeking to bring together Hoosiers from many different walks of life through a grassroots effort to demand solutions amid the concerns that would adversely affect the state's housing market and economic well-being. You know, it was just less than 2 short years ago that we as Hoosiers found ourselves in one of the worst property tax crises in our state's history. It was less than a year ago that, thanks to the leadership of our governor, many leaders in the State House, many organizations across the state of Indiana, and many folks like you, that incredibly awesome legislation to cap property taxes and make it permanent in our Constitution came to the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, 80% of the House of Representatives 1 year ago told Hoosiers this was a good idea and voted overwhelmingly for the legislation. If less than 1 year ago this legislation was so good, let me tell you today why it is great. I don't know if people have realized, but the country seems to be in an economic crisis. The state of Indiana has been affected like many other Americans across this country. Putting this property tax law into play this year again and allowing Hoosiers the opportunity to vote on it as part of our Constitution will bring a certainty to the taxpayers in the state of Indiana in regard to their property. You know, in these difficult economic times, government doesn't seem to have a problem growing. Last month, 650,000 Americans lost their jobs. The only segment in our country that grew jobs was government. 9,000 new jobs last month. No. But we as Hoosiers are asked to tighten our belts every day, to live within our means, to live within these new economic times. And rather than government spending all of our money, it'd be nice if just once government could say to us, we are here to help you in the form of property tax relief. This cap will be permanent and you will have the right to vote on it next year. I have asked the question in the House of several members of the House of Representatives why it hasn't hit the floor yet. And I've been told we want to wait and see what the effects are. Let me share with you what the effects are. It's going to cut people's property tax bills. That's pretty positive. It's going to provide certainty to homeowners. That's another good effect. It will stabilize home values. Another great effect. And it will send a message to the rest of the country that if you want to be a property owner, come to the state of Indiana and live here because we take care of our homeowners. With all those great effects, it ought to be an 80% overwhelming vote again this year, shouldn't it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, last year, on this very spot, on March 19th, the State House leaders sat on a stage and watched while Governor Daniels signed into law property tax relief. This was the first of 3 steps to permanently cap property taxes, solving a problem that has plagued Indiana for decades once and for all. Since that event, Hoosiers have seen their property taxes decrease on average of 30% statewide. 33 counties have seen a 40% reduction, with the highest being Wabash County with an average of 93% reduction in their property taxes. In a time of international and national uncertainty, when every dollar counts, making ends meet, we as Hoosier taxpayers are counting on every dollar this year, and we need the certainty, and we need it now. We have come here today in an act of citizenship to show them that we want property tax relief, we want it permanent, we want it now. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would join me in letting them know, cap it now. Cap it now. Cap it now. Cap it now. Okay, all right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I would introduce our next speaker, a homeowner from Muncie, Indiana. Would you please join me in a warm welcome for Mr. Jim Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to apply for the poster child for property tax abuse. My home is a beautiful home in Muncie, and it was a historic home. I rent part of it out. And because of that, taxes, when they rose to $7,800 per year. With the changes this year, they went down to $7,500. In a worst case scenario, if I still pay the investment rate, they will go down to $4,600 for a savings of $3,200. They'll still be too high, but maybe I'll have a chance to keep my house. And that is partially the story of my American dream that became my American nightmare. Winners and losers. There's been much talk lately about winners and losers whenever property tax repeal is discussed. It infuriates me that our legislators cannot comprehend the concept that we all lose if we keep our current convoluted, complex, and confusing property tax system, and that defining tax reform in terms of winners and losers is a self-serving slogan that is designed to fail. In fact, this tangled two-step called winners and losers seems less like a concerted effort to enact significant permanent property tax reform and more like a politically engineered exercise in futility, carefully crafted to defend the status quo. First, our public servants must come to understand that the real issue is not who wins and who loses with property tax reform or repeal. The real issue is how to get state and local government spending under control so that property taxes can be permanently capped to protect taxpayers' personal property. Be advised that your citizens are not berating you to blindly shift bloated budgets from one taxing vehicle to another, but be forewarned that your citizens are demanding that you take decisive steps to modernize government, consolidate services, eliminate waste, and reduce budgets so that we can afford to keep our homes and our businesses. foremost, above all else, your citizens are challenging you to finish what you started with House Bill 1001 that proudly promised property tax caps. Shortly after the signing of HB 1001, we were saddled with a 17% sales tax increase to fund the caps. But in a case of legislative legerdemain, the property tax caps were slated to be phased in over a 3-year period, ensuring different property tax bills and corresponding confusion for 3 years. Now we learn that Patrick Bauer has blocked the vote to lock in the property tax caps for this year, and that the new mantra is to wait and see what the impact of the caps is before allowing the tax-paying public an opportunity to vote on the caps. Mr. Bauer, lock in those caps. I contend that if past experience is followed here, that the 17% sales tax increase enacted last year is here to stay. But the property tax caps funded by that increase are at the whim and mercy of big government bureaucrats who defend the status quo at the expense of their tax-weary constituents. I suggest that those incumbents who deny the dreams, desires, and desperate demands of their constituents will have a newfound appreciation of winners and losers on Election Day, when their neglected constituents get their chance to bebop and boogie at the ballot box. I've heard that the throw out the incumbent two-step is all the rage. Let's dance.
At this time, I would like to introduce you all to Jerry Collins, President of Flaherty and Collins Properties.
My name is Jerry Collins, and I'm honored to stand before you today and talk about a subject that raises a lot of ire on both sides. I'm president of Flaherty and Collins Properties, and our company owns and manages nearly 5,500 multifamily units in the state of Indiana. And property taxes have a profound effect on the ability to manage those properties and in rental housing. More than 1/3 of the residents in the state of Indiana live in apartments. And with that in mind, I'd like to say to the legislators in this state that we need the caps to be permanent. Renters do pay property taxes. Fixed cost in multifamily set the rents we must charge. In the past, our industry has been able to weather the property tax storm brought on by elected officials. Apartments have never qualified for homestead credits, have never been part of the circuit breaker system until now. We have seen yearly increases in property taxes over the past 10 years. Apartment owners saw huge increases in property taxes in 2002 property tax reform. Data released by the legislative services agencies after the 2002 reassessment show rental property increased almost twice as much as homestead property, largely because apartments did not receive the homestead deduction. According to LSA, rentals in commercial apartments paid 76% of the increase in net taxes collected by the state of Indiana from residential property. After 2002 increases, many multifamily owners were able to refinance their properties at a lower interest rate to help keep rent increases down. Let me tell you, those days are over in this economy. We are living in uncertain, recessionary times. We call on our elected officials to vote yes on SJR 1. We need the permanent relief now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to hear from a couple more folks, and then we'll be having the governor shortly. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Dave Compton, R.N. Thompson and Associates.
Thank you. I stand here before you today as a developer, a homeowner, and the past president of over 6,000 members of the Indiana Builders Association in support of property tax caps. We support property tax caps because they protect and encourage home ownership in the state of Indiana. Property tax caps provide predictability in uncertain times. They encourage fiscal responsibility and accountability that is currently missing in many local governments. This certainty puts people back into the home buying mode, which puts people back to work building houses. Builders and business like the certainty that property tax caps bring. We know what we're facing, we know what our challenges are. This will encourage more businesses to come to the state of Indiana and hire Hoosiers to work for them. Jobs equals housing, and housing equals jobs. In conclusion, go forth, talk to your representative, demand that they be part of the 80% or more that supports property tax cap, and bring predictability back to current and future homeowners and our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. Now I'd like to introduce you to John Sorensen, a homeowner from Crown Point, Indiana.
Hi, folks. We've been here before. We've heard the politicians tell us not to worry. It's been fixed. It's hard to believe that for some leaders who've been in the House for 40 years, not to remember 2 or 3 times they've claimed to solve the problems on property taxes, only to have them rise in the future. Well, no more. We have a plan. You voted on the plan. Now it's time to cap them. We must make these caps in the Constitution permanently. We've heard some leaders say that this problem's fixed with threats of lawsuits, with the House already repealing a provision for referendums on school constitution problems. Our property tax relief is anything but fixed. We can't afford to double cross. Quit playing politics. We stand here today asking for the House to stand with the taxpayer and give us the choice. Give us the choice. In these hard times, every dollar matters, and we need these certainties, and this cap gives us those. Speaker Bauer, House members, please hear SJR 1 and hear us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much, John. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great honor to introduce us to the governor of Indiana. But before I do that, I would like to recognize another great leader here in the state of Indiana, Lieutenant Governor Becky Skillman. Would you please recognize her? Folks, it is now my great honor to bring forward a man who has been a tremendously great leader for the state of Indiana. If there is one word that we would use to sum up Governor Daniels, that word, in my estimation, would be leadership. Governor Daniels has provided incredible leadership on this issue, on property tax reform, on property tax caps, and had the wisdom to know that it had to be permanent in our Constitution going forward to protect Hoosiers. He realized that. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a great Hoosier welcome to the Governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels.
Thanks an awful lot. Thank you. Thank you now. I want to thank you first of all for allowing Becky and me to be your guests. This is your house. Let me just say, this place never looks better than when it's full of taxpayers standing up for their rights. We need to see you here more often. There is just no better sight. Let me just say a couple very quick things and words of thanks. You know, it was on this spot less than a year ago when we made history and signed the bill that you made possible. And if you will just think back, if it seemed important in the summer of '07, in the fall, in the spring of 2008, if it seemed important then to cut the property taxes of every Hoosier family and business by a third or more and to cap them forever, think how much more important it is now when people are hurting. I cannot count the number of people that I have met as I've traveled the state these last few months who have told me that but for the property tax reductions that you delivered, they would not be in their house today. You have done that. We've got to finish the job. So let me not take long. These things you know. We have one step and only one step left. There is no reason for delay. Not one thing. We will, when the people of Indiana vote to make this permanent a year from this fall, they will know everything there is to know about the effects of property tax relief and caps. There's no reason to delay now in guaranteeing them their right to vote. When you get upstairs, all you have to say to people is, please, leave this decision to the people, trust the people, and let us vote. Now, people say to me all the time, they say, but we smell a rat. We suspect a double cross. You know, this isn't about more information. There won't be any more information. This is all about figuring out a way to kill the caps and prevent them from ever becoming permanent protection for taxpayers in our state. I say, let's assume the best. Let's take a positive stance. When you get upstairs, be positive and encouraging. Remember that a huge majority in both houses, in both parties, voted for this reform. All we're asking them to do is finish the job. Well, you all know the old saying, one man, one vote. Well, there's one man who can make possible one vote that will protect Hoosier property taxpayers forever. He's not hard to spot. He's a distinctive looking fella. Looks a little Irish. He will listen to you, I believe it. And he will certainly listen to his fellow members. If the other members of the House who've already voted to help property taxpayers before will simply say, Mr. Speaker, let us finish the job. Let us give this vote to the people of Indiana. I truly believe he'll do it. So it's all up to you now. Those folks up there, they know what I believe. They know how deeply I feel it. They need to know what you believe and how deeply you feel it. We will make this job permanent. You all take it from here.
Thank you, Governor Daniels. Let's give him another hand. Well, again, thank you, Governor, for being here and supporting taxpayers, but also for your leadership on this issue. Like the Governor said, it is now up to us, each and every one of us gathered here today. Please notice the bright-shirted volunteers around the crowd. Before you go upstairs and seek out your representative, ask them to sign this pledge up here and to vote on SJR 1 now. Please fill out one of the note cards and give them back to the volunteers to deliver. Also, everyone should have with them a roll call sheet with a list of the representatives and how they voted last year on the resolution. You will notice a phone number at the top right. Right now, as we stand here in the People's Capital, I ask that you get out your cell phone or borrow your friends or neighbors and call the switchboard until you get through and demand that they hear SJR 1 now. Ladies and gentlemen, this could ultimately be a defining moment in the history of the state of Indiana. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today, making this rally possible. I want to thank the Governor, all of our speakers, and let's go make this property tax cap permanent. Let's do it. Thank you for being here.
Good job, you're the owner.